It's so frustrating. It's literally so frustrating.
I look good.
Right.
I don't see how they're going back to school.
Girl, I don't even
Well, you see how they run them back out in college as soon as they get there.
And that's what my nephew, I was like, dude, you can take some online class. You don't have, I mean, sit down.
I'm
it's
gonna
like,
try
fine.
one.
Oh,
Hello, this is Lamont Collins at Roots 101 African American Museum. We're here for the first episode of the healing process. And the reason we call it a healing process is because Roots 101, we consider it a healing museum where we tell the story of the African American journey 365 days a year. And we use the word healing because as we tear the story apart, we take the time to dissect it and heal the wounds that we come through our journey as African Americans. Today on our first episode, we have 4 beautiful queens. And the thing about queens is that people think women only got involved in 2020, but historically women have always been involved in our community. Even from the time that we stepped off the boat, women have always helped make decisions or be part of that decision making, whether it was at the kitchen table or whether it was at home or in church. It was the women that helped make the decisions that men did. And today we find women leading again. So I'm married to a strong woman, so I don't mind being at the table with 4 strong women. First, I'd like to introduce Hannah Drake. Hannah, you can tell them a little bit about you.
hello everyone. My name is Hannah Drake. I am a spoken word artist, a poet, and a writer, blogger here in Louisville.
Rhonda Mathis.
Okay, well, Rhonda Mathis. I'm a Louisvillian. I grew up in Smoketown, my roots. I'm a community activist, been involved in my community for a very long time. I take my folding chair with me, invited or uninvited. If it concerns my people, I'ma show up.
No, that's right. Jane?
Good afternoon. I'm Jane Grady, and I'm an activist born in Louisville, and I've been chair of many meetings in the neighborhood, and so my healing process is what I'm going to work on with the young people.
Cool. Nicole?
Hello, my name is Nicole Hayton. I am the founder and president of Friends of Nicole, 50/50 Mentoring Collaborative. I also serve many roles in the community of being a community liaison and a community connector. So that's my role.
Well, cool. Let the healing begin. Let's go. Ready? The reason we call this is that, Louisville, Kentucky, we have the death of Breonna Taylor. From Breonna Taylor, there's a history of injustice in Kentucky and in Louisville. And we're just in the midst of it now. And one reason to call this is discuss it. But I wanted to call the old with the new. Because there's a history to protesting here in Louisville, Kentucky, that people think nowadays it just started. It didn't just start. A.D. King, Martin Luther King's own brother, was here in Louisville, Kentucky. So whenever he needed something, Martin Luther King was a phone call away. And Martin didn't travel by himself. He brought other leaders with him. So in Louisville, I hear a lot of discussions about outsiders. And I wonder, what does outsider mean? We're all the same color. We're all on the same journey. So if we're all on the same mission, how does the word outsider come about? Can I ask that question? Whoever.
I think certainly people who are on the ground doing a lot of work around Breonna Taylor probably feel as if that's our sister, our daughter, could be our child, and they have some ownership over this story. But I feel like, as you said, we're all black, and the fight for justice does not end at the border of Kentucky.
Correct.
The same way with Ferguson, and people from here travel to Ferguson. People traveled when Trayvon Martin was killed, and so on and so forth, because that's how justice flows like water. That's what it's called, to flow like. And so you go where you're needed. And at this particular point, and I had a meeting with some of the people that people may consider outsiders. But one thing that stood out to me is that they said they are going to come to call attention to this. And one thing they said is they have never seen a black woman get justice in America. And I paused and thought about that, and I thought that they're right. I kept trying to run through my mind, have I ever seen that happen? And I haven't. And anything that can draw attention to the story of Breonna Taylor is a win. That's how we need to look at it.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, I think this is our family in Louisville, Kentucky. And back in the day, you always had collaborative and people coming together to fight the race, to fight the war. And so this is what we have, and people coming together. I got someone inbox me and said, Ms. Ron, do you think it's right for these outsiders to come and people been in the trenches, and the people who said that I had not seen them in the trenches, but they said that, people being in the trenches. Well, if you out in the front lines, the back of the line, wherever, if you're trying to make a difference, and they coming in, they're not trying to take over, and they were invited, and they specifically said that we want to come to help. So accept the help and keep it moving.
Ms. Dana?
Well, I agree with both conversations. When this occurred, of this young lady being murdered, I had to think about it deeply, since that was the ongoing thing over the radio and TV. And then what implemented when they said about these policemen, and at the time that they approached the home, I thought that was ridiculous. But in talking to young people, I decided to go down there and meet with the two young ladies from Kentucky Alliance, which I was a part of for many years. And I was talking to them, and they were glad I came, but I did talk to two other young people that wanted me to speak on it, but I only addressed myself in the struggle 20, 30, 40 years ago. And I feel like with the healing of the young people of the day, they need us elders to hear the story, because they are, I'm not calling, this is the future of the generation. I won't call it new, because new will be somebody new personally. But I wouldn't address them as no strangers. People are people, the humanistic of way I look at it now.
Well, I definitely agree with what everyone has said. I think it is, I can't take it. I think it is, it's definitely needed. You know what I'm saying? When you go back and you do watch, and I'm glad you said that about Martin Luther King's brother living here, because that's something that I didn't know. But as I review pictures and old newspaper articles, like Martin Luther King was here all the time, and just to know that he was not only in where he was from in Atlanta, he went to, Mississippi, went to all these other places. And so some of the people that have came to help assist with this movement with us, that's exactly what they're doing. And so I don't think this generation sometimes get that. And I know people from Louisville is very protective. Like, I'm very protective of my city. So, but it's just, if everybody can just be open-minded. And I think that, sometimes we have lost that. It's been a gap. Because of course, from Ms. Mathis, generation, they was a part of the civil rights, and and they marched and they did, they did things like that, and then we didn't see nothing else happen like that until now. So it's been a long, long history, that separate us from the past to now. So everybody that's the generation that's learning now, it's like nobody kind of helped guide us. I told us what we supposed to do or how we supposed to do things, because we hadn't seen nothing like this before. And so I think it's very important to have them, on the table or in spaces to have conversations with us, to be the elder, to let us know, like, no, we need this. You know what I mean? And so maybe they will look at it a little differently, because it's different arguing with somebody that's of the same generation, trying to explain to them that we need this. So it does take voices like Ms. Rhonda's to say, no, we need this. This is what we did, and I have the pictures to show it.
Right. I think it's so timely for what I'm trying to do for the museum piece, because I'm trying to show that we have a history, that we are descendants of kings and queens that were enslaved in America. So when you tell that mindset, everybody knows they're descendants of royalty. That's a different mindset. That's a different walk. That's a different talk. That's learning about accountability and responsibility, right? So when we come here and talk about healing, healing means so much in our community. I mean, it goes from the time we're in the womb to we're out of the womb. We're always healing, right? It's just something that goes who we are and what we are in America. It's a healing process. So in the healing, I think we're now into generational things too, like you said. So my next question is the healing have to start with us first?
I believe so.
Yes.
I believe so. I think that, you know, of course, as African Americans, we have so much trauma that we have dealt with just as children. You know what I mean? So this, you know, this situation alone is trauma. You know, and it's like, you know, we often, when we talk about healing, it's like, what does that look like? We've just been so, we've been raised to be strong. We've been raised to hold everything in. We've been raised to keep it going. But sometimes some of this, you know, trauma can either take you this way or it can take you that way. And so I think, you know, continuing to have conversations about, you know, it's okay to go see a therapist. It's okay to sit in a circle and just express the way you feel. I cry, you know, but just make sure you're channeling in what helps you. You know, whether that's painting, whether that's music, whether that's, you know, whatever that form is, you have to tap into that.
Right.
Because it can be overwhelming. You know, with me, I can't watch the news anymore. You know what I mean? I have to limit myself to social media because, of course, that's basically the news at this point. But, you know, that's what I have to do for myself, because if I constantly see everything that's going on with this, you know, and even when it came to marching, it became overwhelming. I was there the first couple of days and realized this is not my calling may be in, you know, in something else, you know, when it comes to protesting. Because for me, I can't really handle that every day, all day. So I am concerned about the people that are, you know, marching and protesting every day. It's like, take a break. Take a week off. That's what the people from out of town, that's what they serve. When it's time for you to take a break, that's when they step in. You know what I mean? It's okay to take a break and just...
And it's amazing, we're the only people that have been healing since we've been here.
Yeah.
You know, for 61 years, I've been healing.
That's deep.
And nobody can say that with black people.
Yeah.
It's that the whole process of us living and dying is a healing process.
Yes, sir.
That's something, you know,
Yeah.
that's traumatic in your
Yeah.
own mind when
Yeah.
you look at that. So,
Yeah.
man, I got to deal with all of this just because of the color of my skin. So from the healing, I mean, somebody else can answer the question you want to.
I think, I do agree that black people are always in a constant state of trauma and healing, but in Louisville and knowing the history of Louisville, you, to me, can't heal from something if you're never allowed and afforded the ability to heal from
Correct.
something. So it's like Louisville continues to pick the scab away, and America continues to pick the scab away with black people. So it's never any point. I mean, even if we take Breonna Taylor's case, and that was tragic what happened, and then a week later, we find out her boyfriend is wrongly locked up, and then I'm just saying dates, I don't know what, but then a week later, the incident report comes out, and then a week later, it's something else. And so, you know, black people just can't heal because it's always another thing. It's always another thing that's going to be traumatic. It's always going to be another video on social media. Another I can't breathe with Eric Garner. We saw I can't breathe with George Floyd. It's like, how many more times? And then to ask us, how do we heal? Well, you tell me, because you're not even allowing me to heal at this point.
Yeah. And then I think for us also is that we are spiritual people. And then with this pandemic going on, the churches is closing, because I think when we were marching, that was our healing place to get together and go to church and moan and groan and hear a word. And we don't have those kind of spaces because we're in constant motion, we're fighting for justice, you know, all the time. And then we find ourselves explaining ourselves and something that someone else has done to us, and why we seeking justice, you know. So you're always in a sense of turmoil, in a state of rage.
Yeah, I agree. I used to say that Barack Obama's biggest problem to white America is that he justified who we were as black people. And he talked about how he was pulled over by a police officer, and he's the president of the United States. In most cases, that would have validity, right? But white America didn't want to accept that because it became a reality, right? And that president of the United States don't supposed to talk about that, right? But in his black experience, he had to talk about it. And I think the biggest hatred to him is that he gave us validity on who we were and what we dealt with in America. You know, so to switch gears because this is really pretty cool so far. When we talk about, you mentioned spirituality, and when you march, and Ms. Jane marched, I know for a fact you started the marches with prayer and direction, right? And Oliver, and I asked Nicole, and I asked Hannah, how's that process changed? Is it still a spiritual process as you walk out, or is it an emotional process? And if it's emotional, I want to talk about that to the young ones.
I think it's a mixture of both and, because I do think that you have, certainly not in Justice Square, they do have services, and I know several people that are preachers that are there, you can talk about where the being there, the sheriff often there. But I think so much of this, and I understand it, it's driven by emotion because you're angry. You're upset that a woman, a black woman, was in her home doing nothing, and she's found dead, and it's just one thing after the other after the other. And then we saw this. It's not just George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery, but just these black women just at home. Atiana Jacobs at home with her nephew dead. You know, Ayanna Stanley Jones, 7, sleeping on her grandmother's couch, shot in the head, dead. And it's just black women that are just minding their own business. And so you're angry. You're angry at that. You're angry. You can't shop for a normal meal in your neighborhood. You're angry. It's no jobs. You're angry. You're red. I mean, like Baldwin said, to be black in America is to be in a constant state of rage. And what I think a lot of people see is myself, us, we're a little bit older. They think we're not mad. No, we just trying to lay low. But he mad.
We mad.
Don't
get it twisted. Yeah.
Understand how calm
Yeah.
collective black people are trying
To be. Yeah.
You know, because really, I'm close to
Edge.
I was reading the other day, and they talked about we've been emotional and angry for 400 years.
Yes.
But we have not cut throats to people.
Yes. No.
So we haven't done that in 400 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? You know, what's going to do what I said? What's going to pop off? I don't know.
Yeah.
But the question is, how do we direct the anger? I get the anger. I understand it. But how do we direct it into success? Because it's like this. If you come at me, my natural action is to come at you. So we're both angry, right?
Yeah.
And it's fractions of America that want you to be angry.
Yeah.
And they've been hungry for a race war for 400 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Even though it's still all this time. So if we fight with anger from anger, outnumber, outmanned, I don't know. You know, but the question is, how can we take the anger and make it positive and reach our goal? Is it through continuing protest? Is it through demands for justice, through economic power, through educational power, through especially schools? How do we direct the anger to where it makes it better for us?
If I could just say real quick, because I know I've been talking real well, my cousin told me, you are no longer lynched with a rope, they will lynch you with a pen. And they will sign something in policy. And it will now mess up your entire life, right? And sometimes I believe, you know, and the powers that be in charge are like, that's cute, and they march, and we still don't sign.
Correct.
Right. Y'all keep doing that, and we still don't. And so I think it's very important, just like with Brianna's law and other legislation, Katora Hearing with that, Attica Scott's trying to do it statewide. We must be at their game and playing them.
We can't play checkers when they're playing chess. If the Supreme Court is what they're trying to change, once the Supreme Court makes it law, no matter what you do.
Right.
It's America. So what I'm saying, with the anger we have to go from playing checkers to chess. We have to go out and vote.
Yes.
We didn't do last time. We can't allow brothers to say that won't infiltrate our success. Saying you shouldn't vote. So we have to be cognizant of what we're dealing with as black people within our own community.
Yes. That's
Is that right?
true. Yeah.
So voting, people have to even think and go with the judge who signed off on the no-knock warrant. We voted her in, and I say we, I mean the people.
Yeah.
now she can't sign off on no not warrant. But now I'm thinking, what else did she sign off on?
Yeah.
So
What else
even
did she
down
do?
on the ballot, you need to read up on what these judges are doing. Because
Yes.
we are lack of voting, or are we voting for her, put her in that position. So we need to think bigger than the president, and then I might vote for the governor. But your school board, your metro council,
Yeah.
the judges you vote for, all of it, because people look at the police in this. Look at the entire system. The entire system collaborated together, and that's why we're on the table.
And I think that more of that message, especially with our young folks, need to get out as far as the importance of voting, because they protesting, frustrated, they anger, but this has been good because it has pushed the bottom out, and that we've brought people together and made them realize that we're not just crazy in our heads.
Right.
But for them to see the bigger picture locally, as far as nationally, how voting affects us. Because I know Jane and I, as far as back in the day and with our ancestors, we really understand as far as the blood, sweat, and tears. That's what I think is kind of missing with them. Because I talk to them, and some of them say that vote for what or who I vote for. They're not interested in voting. When I say, well, let your protest be your vote, because I would love to see them all marching, like they do down there, and come marching at the polls. They would scare the shit out of them. They realize they get it. So because we need to put people in places out front, but in the corporate office.
Yeah.
Because back in the day, with Lenny Lyles and what was Joe, all the real estate. They was moving and shaking, you didn't know it because they were quiet. There were people like with Whitney Young said, we need you out on the street, but I'm going to be behind closed doors and making a deal. So we have to utilize all of our talent.
And I remember, I was out to Reverend Coleman. He was like a mentor and a friend. And Reverend Coleman, if he trusts you, he can confide in you.
Right.
That's the way he was.
Right.
So I think I was president of Black Men at the time. He had no trust, but he had trust in me, right? So we did a lot of things together, but we didn't have to and he made those moves, just like white America made moves in the board.
Right.
And coffee. We have to have the same mentality that all our moves can't be on Facebook.
Yes.
That's why I said about young people is that everything don't have to be brought. So, and I think you're more effective when you navigate from the boardroom front.
Right.
Somebody's got to be in that position. And what happens in Louisville is one or two people.
Yeah.
That's wrong. We have to look at it now. We need more one or two people representing what we have. White America has more than one or two people. And we have to actively position people and say, hey, we need you to come up. We need you to be ready when Sadiqa moves on. Or we need you to be ready to do your thing. And that's what we have to be. And that's why I want to see young people do is position yourself to where this thing can keep going. Just don't sit on the vine.
And it's very important too, that you bring that up. It's very important too, is that a lot of the people that are in position, a lot of the elders that are in position, pull us up a seat. You know what I mean? Don't make us work as hard to get to the table. We all know that everybody has to get old, everybody's gonna move on. But if you see yourself, like my role right now is like, the younger generation, like whatever I can do to invite you to the table, just come on. Because I don't know what path may lead me, but I want to be able to, all this knowledge that I have in my head, all my resources, I want to be able to give it. But Louisville has just been a city, a big, I call it a small big city, with African American women, and you know how we are, we keep our stuff tight, we don't want to tell nobody, nobody want to put nobody on, because everybody sometimes wants to be that person. But I think, I often call it the new Louisville. I think, with, like you said, the people that are out protesting in the streets, this is bringing everybody out. We're able to identify the people who want to be leaders, and we're able to identify the younger people who need a little leadership, who may need a mentor. So, and it's our responsibility just as much as, the elders to say, hey, Let me talk to you. You know what I mean? Let me tell you what's going on. Let me show you the ropes. Sis, get off Facebook. You know what I mean? And you might have to be the bad guy. You might have to, because other people are not going to tell them that. You know what I mean? It's like, I look at you bigger. We may disagree on some things, but take that energy and you can shift it in so many other places. You know what I mean? Don't use your social media to gain likes of people who cannot push you farther. You know what I mean? So, you know, I mean, and that's just my kind of like, I'm not coming at you, sis, but I want to be able to talk to you. Let's make a vow, like, and I'll just, you know, just be transparent. I did talk to a young person. I said, you know what? Let's make a vow today that we will no longer, regardless if we disagree with what one is doing or how they protesting, we're not going to take it to social media. You have my word. I have your word. If you know you and your friend circle and y'all can talk and, you know, gossip, well, can we make it a vow as black women to not use social media to tear down another black woman or man? And we agreed, and that was the end of the conversation. You know what I mean? But it's okay to call somebody up and say, hey, so let me talk to you. You know, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be drama. It doesn't have to go that route. But if you're mature enough to have these conversations, you're mature enough to be a leader. You know what I mean? But if you can't have these conversations, you should be.
And I think that's in the healing process in our community, is we have to reach back to young people. Right? And we got to connect. And we can't keep, and I keep saying this, I've been local for 61 years in my life. We can't allow the same people at the table expect to take them. We can't. Because what happens is those that been at the table are used to eating at the table and whatever somebody wants to feed. Right? And we can't keep being fed the same way because we're in the same situation. If you think about it, we're talking about protests back to 60. We're still doing the process in 2020. Right? So something's wrong with that. And how do Nicole and Hannah, how do they get that mantle? And when they get that mantle of responsibility, how they going to share it? You know, there's heavy as the crown of the king. How are they going to do it? That's why I look at her, and a lot of times I might challenge her. I'm getting to know you and challenge you because it's about you. Just like I said about this museum, it ain't about me, it's about you and your future. And you don't have a 5-year plan, you have a 500-year plan. That is all, and that's what I challenge young people to do. And part of the healing process here today is that we just have to become better ancestors. And I always say that because if we become better ancestors, we become a better community. It used to be a time, you know, you didn't have to pass stuff from JCC where they got a new thing. If you don't have enough money, they give you a loan to go to school. It used to be a time you have enough money, churches collected the money to keep you in school. It used to be a time when Auntie so-and-so went to New York and got money. We were responsible for our own kids and our own future, right? That's what we need to get back to. How do we get that? That's the healing we have to do within inside our community, right? And then from all the protests and nonprofits, and you know, I'm on a nonprofit end, so I've seen this to death. Even from the nonprofit end, we've allowed corporations to give 3% of the money to black nonprofits across this country. And you think about Louisville's even less than that. Something's wrong with that. When all the money can go to places that feed you or dribble a basketball, something's wrong. Money can't go to places where kids can learn and be better and have the image of who they are.
And out on
We
trips.
have to demand that. We can't keep saying, give out a sports club. You know, we got to address that, right?
And we need to take control of that too. Like, we got to take control of how the money is filtered. It's time for us to put together our own coalition and our own ways to how we're going to distribute money. So if they give one corporation a big amount of money, and we know that there's small nonprofits or small nonprofits on the right, we give them away. You know what I mean? We dictate.
If you trust us as the niche, whatever you guys have, let us disperse it. Because you're not digging enough to know what it's all about anyway. So that's I mean, I'm adamant about that. That's what we got to be.
Well, may I add to this? And listen, everything sounds good, and the tape recorder is winding back to my experience. At my age, 82 years old, I made it.
Praise God.
But I came through the color code of teaching, Virginia Avenue to Madison Junior High. More white people, white-looking blacks, than it was black-owned. And I'm leading up to when I became teaching, sub-teaching, that I made through my crisis father passed away, and I'm 7 years old. My mother's in a tight strain. We're not really connected, so I have no mama, so I'm growing up and taking care of my sisters. And the process of people coming in, like I said, from Bowling Green and Bowling Green and down in the country area, my mother took them in when their family would let their own people, kinfolk, stay in their house. They talked my mother into using our home because we had a 5-6 bedroom home, but 2 bedrooms, and me and the kids my sisters had to go in one room while she housed another couple and they daughter in the back room. I did not like that. She did not know I liked that. What you talking about, holding things in?
Yeah.
Eyes don't deceive you of today. Ears do not deceive you when other mouths are talking. When you find I was quiet, but I picked up enough up to this day and before my mother passed, I had her talking. I told her things I disliked. Our own people, I've seen cutthroats. When my daddy died, I could see all these people coming in. The first thing they wanted, my daddy was a carpenter. And I would be down there every evening he got off from work to watch him make things. He made my doll furniture, everything. These people never came around until after his ass was closed. And they took my mother for weakness and wanted all of his supplies. He had a grandfather clock that the judge gave him, wasn't working. My mother told me. And later on, when my daddy died, this black housekeeper made a way and she told my mother it was a lawyer, but I told her I would have pushed the darn thing down, let it break and let it take. She said, I didn't think you thought like that. That's what I said, the eyes don't deceive you. Watch it. She came to my mother's house to receive something that the judge gave my father for the benefit of jealousy. Our race of people have a lot of jealousy. Me coming along. I can speak up to the young generation now, my daughter, and my son. I had 2 sons and a daughter. But anger, and sometimes I'd be in the bedroom just start crying. Because why did we have to live like this? My daddy had a dream to have a big home built. I wasn't in no project. We were in a brand new home. Didn't have to shovel no coal and wood like people say. Wasn't eating beans every day. You know, we had decent meal. We lived very comfortable. So, being that I was very sensitive to my classmates, and they were considered poor. So I'm a sharer. From this up to now, I'm going to share. And one time my mother said, why is it you always giving other people stuff? Now, when I moved in Beecher Terrace was my biggest experience, living around a whole bunch of colored folks. Big experience. But you know what? Beecher Terrace to me was like a condominium. That's where I took my part. Because it was beautiful when my mother and dad at the time back there, and my religion came up under Virginia Avenue Church, and piano. But I wanted to dance. My mother wanted me to do piano. I went all the way through Emma Menace. You probably heard the Emma Menace Academy. She was my my music teacher. I went straight on to the 12th book and out of there. I had my dream to go to New York, and I wanted to be a tap dancer and a ballet from what I saw then. That's another eye pickup. So up to Beecher Terrace, and 2 years after I got in there and got acquainted with neighbors and things, and I want you to listen to me clearly, up to now, this generation, this is the generation of the future. I'm not saying new generation like people say. I left and went to California. Who do you know in California? Police. It's people. You hear how kind of dense other people think because they never been out of the box? And so my sister left and went to college out there. So she's been there 55 years. So when we took a chance, and I told this white lady, and I heard years ago, she said, oh, Jane is always one of those outspoken persons. Now that's the way white people think about us. When they know we're smart, as them are not, is smart, okay? And I was around lots of wealthy people. But just to let the story go, and I would tell the young people, I have a man, and I can think, the first thing they said, well, who do you know in California? I said, the same people you all know in Hyansport, Massachusetts. People. Okay, they said, oh, I was a housekeeper. I took care of the house, had the key to the house, I can go eat, whatever. They said, Jane, we're leaving, going to Africa. I said, well, hold up, going to Africa? Why are you going to Africa? Oh, well, we're going to see the safari and the animals. I said, well, wait a minute, let me pack my bag and swing it on with it.
I know that's right. I know that's right.
You see what I'm talking about? Learning the people to, when somebody throws something back to you, be ready.
Yeah.
Listen to throw the answer back. And so as it was, I said, okay, it was 3 of them going. I said, well, I sure would like to go to Africa. So in the meantime, she brought back me print material, and I have 3 lovely necklaces that the women, when their hair was bald, I read about it, and she brought me back these 3.
So she didn't let you down?
No, but I ate well and I slept well.
While they were gone.
I took advantage of that. You see?
Yeah.
So what advice, I know we have to wrap up.
Yeah.
But it's been, I mean,
But this will be the story and the healing, letting young people know. Like I've met my daughter and son, you know. You will have to cry sometimes. I wasn't a perfect mother, but I learned through the elders. And I love being with the elders, as now, in my closing, I am helping and assisting a 90-year-old lady now. Spiritually, like you were saying, going to church, Sunday school, put it in us. May I tell you all this and keep it? When they took the 10th commandment down, what did they do?
you mean in school?
How did they destroy it? School, church, courthouse. When you read the 10th commandment, which I have in my bathroom, one, recite it. I'm saying spiritually we're at the back door of destruction and corruption. And this is where.
I would agree there's validity to that. Because I mean, statistically, less people going to church every day. And
Sunday school.
Sunday school. So I get that. I wouldn't dismiss that at all.
So this is what I want y'all to know that I do.
And the importance of you speaking and Rhonda speaking is that I don't think elderly people have a voice at the table anymore. You know, unless they're in a position of what people feel is power. And they don't realize the lives that you guys have touched in whatever many years you've been on here. And I think in our community, we forget it's not about the person who has on the tie. It's the person you have ties with.
That's it.
It's the ones you have ties with. I'm going to take my stuff out. Take my stuff out. It's all good. But, you know, but that's what we have to be. And when I was younger, I had ties with people in the community. And that's why I had to do this museum. The Willie Carter, the George Humphrey in the community. I go on, you know, that's what made me who I am. And I think we don't have enough brothers connecting or females connecting. They keep those ties.
And legacy.
And legacy, yeah, and I always say legacy not, right? But we're so busy teaching the kid how to make a tie and tie a tie.
Yes, all of
than making ties. And that's why
I think it's part of the system, institutionalized racism that hurt us as far as breaking down the family, breaking down our schools, you know, because we got our books, you know, now they say tell them to go stand in the corner, but now the kids know they can call CPS, you know, that, you know, that type of thing as far as the ties. Like when we grew up, I grew up in Smoketown, when we lived on Finza, but with the project, we have our elders there. So I love to sit around the elders, and they took them away from us because they took them to the Gospel Mound, you know. So systematically they were breaking down the African American community, and this is some of what we're seeing now, as far as the frustration, the anger, you know, not being able to reach our kids, and they being, you know, being in the street. It has impacted us in so many ways, you know.
I agree. But do you think, and we're talking about healing from protests to the streets, is there accountability we have to talk to around the tail and the protest? Don't we need to deal with the death in our community?
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
the thing is, too, that gets me, and I know a lot of focus is on Breonna Taylor. However, like the way the media speaks about this, is as if that's not hurting me. You know, as if I was not heartbroken that a little 3-year-old is now dead.
Yes.
You know, that breaks my heart, you know. And so black people have mourned Black death forever. And we will continue to do so and continue to try to impact our communities, because that's what we do. So I think people all the time, well, what about, you know, Black people, what's going on? And that is true. And I'm still always going to bring it back to racism. Because there's so much that there's such a lack and so much hurt in our community that this is the fruit of it. And here we are in Route 101, and the police and people in power don't want to deal with the root of why we are here.
Right.
The root of why you packed people on top of each other down in the
There you
West
go.
End.
Yeah.
You did that on purpose. There's so much they can speak to. They don't want to speak to that. Why did you do that? Why did you move and you call it revitalize the neighborhoods, but they have dry cleaners and they own schools and they own this, that, and the third, and they own restaurants. And every city you go to had a Black Wall Street they talk about. And white people, Black people build it, and white people, you come in and destroy it. And then you say, well, now sit over there and suffer. So if Louisville really wants to talk about that, then let's talk about that. You know, and I'm not saying the killing is right, but this is a symptom of all of this stuff. But Louisville always just wants to deal with the fruit and never the root of it.
I agree on that, and we have to wrap up. But being in the museum, I'm going to use an analogy that I show people every day. When you pick up, I have slave change, right? And I show people the change, and I have them hold the change. And the reason I do that is everything about us is in those chains. It's from the inequities that we deal in America. It's the structure of businesses that were built on slavery, middle management, stockbroking. I mean, it's all in the chain. So we can never discount our history, because our history is why we're in this place now. It's the supremacy. And the reason we have this museum is that we break the myth of supremacy. Because if I'm telling that story of what actually happened in America, supremacy is just a fact. All the things we've done in this, we built this place, right? And because we built this place, we always have to understand that and let our kids know. And I go back to this, the healing is what coming behind us. If they can look at that mirror and find out, hey, I'm more than what they told me I was. So we have to go. This has been wonderful.
Well, I'm glad you said that as far as the culture is calling. So us as a people got to get back to our roots, to call, you know, our culture, to claim our children, to lift them up. You know,
I got one question for each one of them.
Okay.
And you answer it. What does becoming a better ancestor mean to you?
For me, I must have everything that I know and pass it on to young people. I have to do that. I can't just keep everything that I know with me or God with me. So it's my job. When Nicole said that, I thought, who am I mentoring right now? You know, it's my job to pass that on, to pass the baton on to somebody else.
What does it becoming a better ancestor mean to you?
Oh, becoming a better ancestor to me as far as what the knowledge I have, whatever space I'm in, I'm always about sharing information, like Nicole, connecting, you know, people connecting people to people, not teaching, sharing things with white folks, because I set up lots of different organizations and boards, and I make them, that I want to make sure my people are involved, because they always want to use their people. But I said, I got people who that they need to see us, because you reaching out to try to save my people. I need my people to save my people.
I agree. You know, and we'll go to Ms. Chambers. You just brought something up. I would like to see black people make a collective that we're not giving advice for free. Because they're paying consultants that don't look like us.
Right.
But they want us to come and do things for free.
Right.
And nothing else. I want to make a black consultant. I want to do nothing for free.
Come on now.
Nothing for
I like
free.
that.
Go ahead, Ms. Chambers.
Well, my ancestors are feeling a grandparent is leaving a legacy, and I released part of my legacy. I'm recovering from cancer, congestive heart failure, and viral pneumonia that I don't mind telling people. And I survived it all by putting my hands in the maker's hands of the spirit. And when I bounce back, I tell everybody now, my car, you got a new car, this is my mission. I'm on a mission. If I'm fall in the middle of the street and they say, well, I think that's Jane Grady. Okay, I've left a legacy. Phil, don't cry on me, because I have spoke out, I have walked the walk, and I've done all of the things that I possessed in my dream to do.
Praise God. Go ahead, Nicole. What is becoming a better ancestor mean to you?
Becoming a better ancestor to me, I think, is being the change. I've been on a mission to just, try to be that change instead of just sitting in rooms and in boardrooms talking about how we can change Louisville. I think, just like everybody said, like creating a legacy. I want to be, when I leave this earth, I want them to be able to say, Nicole Hayton, she made me feel good. I remember when she did that. So I want my name in history too. So it's my role right now. I'm no longer looking up to a leader. I know that I'm in a position that I am a leader. And so I am creating other leaders so that they can create legacies too. So being that community connector allows me to be in spaces, if it's in boardrooms, to bring my people with me, or be open-minded to people that come to Louisville. Whatever that case may be, I want to be able to be that change.
Cool. And mine becoming a better legacy would be a parable. It would be the greatest king plants trees, knowing that he would never sit under the shade tree. You got that, Tanner?
I got that.
Well, thank you for coming to our
Thank
first
you.
episode of the
Thank
healing
you.
process, and we'll do it again.
Yeah.
All right. Legacies Matter, Roots 101, African American Museum. Be blessed.
Thank you, thank you.
Good job.
That's why I said,
Right, I was ready. That was always a